3 central districts of the city plunged into darkness. The skyscrapers, hospitals, factories, all went dark simultaneously. Hundreds of thousands of people were stunned, and with every passing minute, the damage was measured in millions of dollars. At the headquarters of Power Grid Corp., the city's largest power company, the air was thick with tension. In the control room, 25 senior engineers stood before glaring red screens, numbers blinking constantly in alarm. But no matter how many startup commands were entered, the system did not budge. No one could find the cause. No one had a solution. Just then, the door burst open. A young woman stepped in, carrying nothing but a paper bag of food. Amara Johnson, age 23, a food delivery worker, someone whom this powerful world had nothing to do with, appeared. She placed the bag of food on the technical director's desk, preparing to leave. But when her eyes flicked over the screens, Amara suddenly paused, and then, almost instinctively, she said, "This error, it is not caused by overload. It is in the backup circuitry and the automatic load balancing system conflicting with each other. Unless the reset is done in the correct sequence, the grid will never come back online." The whole room fell silent. 25 engineers exchanged astonished looks. The CTO of the company, Richard Coleman, a powerful white man in a perfect suit, burst out laughing mockingly. He crossed his arms, looked Amara up and down, then coldly enunciated each word. "Who are you? A delivery girl? This is a power system worth billions of dollars. Not your kitchen microwave." Mocking laughter spread throughout the room, but behind those derisive gazes, people began to sense that this young black delivery woman might have just spoken the truth that all 25 engineers had missed. Her name is Amara Johnson, born and raised in the poor working-class south side of the city, where power flickering was an everyday occurrence, where children studied by candlelight and adults were always worried about the end-of-month bills. Amara's father died early in a workplace accident. Her mother, a devoted nurse, had to quit work midway because of a long-term heart condition. Since she was young, Amara knew what it meant to carry the burden of providing, what it meant to grow up earlier than her peers. But behind those sorrowful eyes, she carried a burning passion, clean energy. Amara had been an outstanding student in electronic engineering. She loved tinkering with circuits, happiest on nights sitting at an old wooden desk, soldering tiny chips, trying to build energy-saving systems. However, in her 3rd university year, her dream collapsed. Tuition fees were beyond her reach, along with medical costs for her mother forced her to drop out. Amara closed the textbooks she had not finished reading, hoisted her backpack on her shoulders, and began life as a delivery worker. Day in, night out, crammed into a tiny apartment just big enough for a bed and a small wooden desk. But even after exhausting shifts, Amara kept teaching herself. She experimented with cheap circuit boards bought from second-hand markets, wrote down every idea, as if determined not to let the flame of her dream go out completely. Society saw her only as a black girl delivering food. The powerful looked down on her because of her background, because of her job, and because of her skin color. Yet, that night, in the multi-dollar control room, the one least respected was the first to recognize the problem that the 25 engineers all missed. The atmosphere in the control room was taut as a tightrope. Richard's mocking laughter still echoed, but Amara did not hang her head and leave. She stood straight, determined gaze, then declared boldly, "If I am wrong, what do you lose? But if I am right, this system will be back online in exactly 3 minutes." The whole room laughed louder. A few engineers shook their heads, whispering, "A delivery girl challenging all of Power Grid? How ridiculous." Richard curled a lip, motioned with his hand dismissively. "Fine, let her try. Then when she fails, she will know her place." A reluctant engineer entered the commands exactly in the sequence Amara had described. The operations appeared on the screen. 1 second, 2 seconds, then 3 minutes passed. Suddenly, the red warning lights snapped off. The error alarms fell silent. The power system roared back online, and the entire control center lit up with blinding white light. The 25 engineers stood with mouths agape. Not one could believe their eyes. They had spent more than 6 hours, tried hundreds of commands to no avail, And that delivery girl had taken only 3 minutes to bring the city back into the light. Richard was struck dumb, his face burning, part rage, part shame, but instead of admitting defeat, he clenched his teeth and said coldly, "Do not think one lucky time makes you an expert. Grab your food bag and remember that you are just a delivery worker." Amara did not argue. She picked up the paper bag still on the table, smiled softly, then left behind a short but challenging sentence. "There will come a time when you must remember today. Remember that the one you looked down on saved your system." Then she turned and walked out, leaving behind a room full of people in astonishment. In that moment, Amara should have been recognized, but reality said otherwise. Richard Coleman, the man who had just been embarrassed by a food delivery girl in front of 25 engineers, was not about to let that happen. That very night, he pulled strings using his power and connections. With a single phone call, Amara's delivery accounts on all 3 major platforms were permanently deactivated. The reason given: disrespectful behavior toward customers. Amara was stunned. No job, no income. How was she going to pay for her mother's medication? During those dark days, she came close to breaking down, but Amara was not the type to give up easily. She remembered the long nights spent at her tiny wooden desk, the incomplete design she had once cherished, a prototype called the Smart Load Optimizer, a system that analyzed and optimized electrical load for entire neighborhoods, saving tens of % in energy use and reducing the risk of overload. It was a dream abandoned for lack of funding, but it had never truly died. And now, backed into a corner, that dream reignited. Unexpectedly, Amara was not alone. One evening, she received a secret message from Elena Torres, a Latina engineer at Power Grid, who had witnessed Richard's humiliation of her firsthand. Elena not only expressed her admiration, but also handed Amara a priceless weapon: internal documents and an audio recording of Richard bragging that he had crushed the delivery girl's career. Amara was speechless. She understood then that this injustice was not just aimed at her. It symbolized the many talented people held back by their background, by the color of their skin, and by prejudice. That night, Amara spread out her old blueprints on the table. She made a decision. She would finish her prototype and turn it into a superior system. She would not beg Power Grid to open their doors. She would build a door of her own and one day make those who had looked down on her knock to get in. A week later, the city was abuzz. Dozens of real estate firms and manufacturing plants, Power Grid's biggest clients, received free analytical reports from a name they had never heard before: Amara Johnson. In the reports, Amara exposed dozens of critical flaws in Power Grid's infrastructure, massive energy losses, fire risks, and the high probability of another blackout, all backed by data, simulations, and a newly completed optimization prototype. At first, people were skeptical, but when they compared her reports with real-world performance, the numbers matched with disturbing precision. Trust spread quickly. Within just 1 week, over 10 major clients announced they were canceling contracts with Power Grid. The media got involved, and the headlines were explosive. Engineer turned delivery worker exposes multi-billion-dollar Power Grid flaws. Power Grid loses key clients amid operational failures. In the midst of the crisis, Power Grid's executives were forced to call an emergency meeting, and during that meeting, as reporters crowded the hallway outside, Amara walked in. She was no longer the quiet delivery girl. At her side was a lawyer, and in her hands, a thick stack of documents. The room fell dead silent as Amara laid down the evidence: technical files and a recording of Richard proudly admitting he had destroyed her career. There was no denying any of it. Richard's face turned pale, sweat beaded on his forehead. His voice trembled, but Amara gave him no chance to deflect. She stood tall, looked him in the eye, and said clearly, "Electricity does not discriminate by skin color, but you let your ego and prejudice blind you to real ability." And today, the truth is as clear as the lights in this room. The room exploded in a storm of camera flashes. Richard collapsed, disgraced, facing lawsuits over racial bias and professional negligence. And Amara, the girl who once delivered food, had flipped the script. She not only reclaimed her dignity, but opened a door to justice for countless others who had been crushed under the weight of bias. 8 months after the explosive events, the city was buzzing with a new name, Nova Grid Solutions. It was a company founded by Amara Johnson, offering energy optimization services to businesses and households. The same clients who had walked away from Power Grid now turned en masse to Nova Grid. Not just for the superior technology, but because they believed in the story of a woman who refused to give up after being cast aside. Amara did not walk alone. By her side was Elena Torres, the Latina engineer who had reached out when it mattered most. Now, Elena served as Chief Technical Officer, working alongside Amara to build a more just and innovative energy industry. Amara's family also saw a new chapter. With stable income, she was able to take her mother to the best hospital. After a successful surgery, her mother recovered, now able to walk on her own and smile as she watched her daughter rise from hardship. At a press conference launching NovaGrid's latest product, Amara stood before a crowd of reporters and said, "Fairness and talent do not come from degrees or skin color. They come from perseverance, from believing that we all deserve to be heard. I am just one small example, but I believe many more will rise when pushed down and write their own story." And then, the voice of the narrator rang out like a call to action. If Amara's story inspired you, hit that subscribe button. Let's spread the belief that real talent can never be buried by prejudice.